pray, meditate, or just enjoy a moment of silence to yourself. Thank you. If you'll join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We don't have anybody signed up for public comment, but is there anybody who wishes to speak? Hearing none, moving on to the approval of the minutes. Council, any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes presented? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Make the motion.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a motion and a second to approve the minutes? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries and the minutes are approved. Moving on to updates from council, if there are any. Any updates? All righty, hearing none. Moving on to the consent agenda, and just a reminder, we added these two grants related to the Greenway extension. Any questions, comments, concerns related to either of those two items? All right, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, the motion carries and the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to our first discussion item, item number 5, the review of stormwater issue on Wilkie Way. Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. So last week you heard from Ben Caffey with McGill Associates, who had worked on a report analyzing the stormwater issues that were initially brought forward by residents at 96 Wilkie Way and 6 Wilkie Way regarding what they're perceiving as excessive stormwater flow across the property that was under their understanding with the removing the obstruction from a drainage culvert in front of 96 Wilkie Way has exacerbated the issue of stormwater flow across the property. The town cleared the drainage culvert, which would be a normal practice to do with the drainage culvert, and it's in our town right away. So you heard from Ben Caffey. He went through, I guess, a list of recommendations, if you will. I know one of the requests from the property owner who brought the issue forward, or property owners, was consideration of a weir plate water detention system. After McGill Associates and Ben Caffey's presentation of those recommendations, he had recommended against the weir plate detention system. This is due to the fact of potential negative impacts on excessive stormwater flow, primarily downstream from that point. There were also some issues of the water cresting on the two properties right across the street, which would be 97 Wilkie Way and I think 101 Wilkie Way. So the way we left, and then the recommendation for improvements that McGill brought forward was to do additional storm drainage ditch on the side of 96 Wilkie Way, to make improvements to deepen that and widen that and any other appropriate adjustments, but to improve that drainage ditch to better receive the water through there. And then the other thing was to upgrade a drainage culvert on the 6 Wilkie Way property. It was at a 12-inch up to, it recommended 24-inch. So those were the recommendations of what to do on the two private property owners' places, and obviously had recommended against the weir plate. I know some of the kind of discussion that followed all that information, that presentation, was to follow up with these impacted landowners if you put the Weir Plate detention system, and how did they feel about that? So I reached out to all the property owners listed in the report. I first focused on the ones that would be downstream from the improvements, and it was at 105 Wilkie Way, 109 Wilkie Way, and 115 Wilkie Way. And I talked to Mr. Presley at 105 Wilkie Way, and he didn't think it would have any impact on his property if the Weir Plate system was put in, and it was due to the fact that he believes they sit high enough there elevation-wise that they wouldn't get flooding onto his property. And it mentioned even during Helene, they didn't have really any impacts. The next was 109 Wilkie Way, and I talked to Mrs. Gudger, and she was not interested in this. She's in the process of home possibly being sold. So that wasn't something she was interested in, was comfortable with the engineer's recommendation in the report. And then I talked to 115 Wilkie Way, Ms. Rude, and she's had other ongoing stormwater issues there, and water going over the driveway and onto her property, and she was definitely not interested in something that could add more load there. And then I know the mayor had spoke with Mr. Todd, and I think looked at the property, and they had indicated that maybe we should talk to the 97 Wilkie Way, which is a property right across the street from 96, and 100 Wilkie Way, and these were the ones where the water would crest there, build up, and then drain down. That was happening before any consideration of this, especially if there was some obstruction, like what was there at the end of the drainage culvert. And when I talked to Mr. Stark, he indicated, it would flood on that bottom half of his property, not far from the drainage culvert on his side, and it would come up a ways, but would drain, I guess, to his satisfaction after it would back up. So he did not have a problem with the Weir system. I did talk then to at 100 Wilkie Way. It's Anthony and Sheila Caudle. I initially spoke to Mrs. Caudle, and then she wanted me to speak with her son James. So I talked to James Caudle, and he indicated or observed, some of the ponding of water that would happen across the street from 96 Wilkie Way onto the 97 Wilkie Way property, 2 to 3 feet on either side of the driveway. You mentioned his recommendation, which goes back to the engineer's recommendation, was to better receive the water to make improvements to that drainage ditch that would be between his parents' property and 96 Wilkie Way where the Todds live. That was his recommendation. So I didn't get into what his thoughts were, but kind of inferred that, that's what he would observe as a fix to this, which is consistent with what McGill's report was, Ben had shown. So that's all the information back from these adjoining property owners that would be impacted by a Weir Plate as presented by Ben Cathy with McGill Associates.
Well, I think this is, go ahead, Keith.
I think obviously we all hate that this is happening to anyone. But I think that our hands are definitely tied after speaking with the attorney and speaking with a professional engineer company, that we shouldn't take the responsibility of the repercussions of changing the water flow when there is actually a solution to the problem, but the homeowner would just have to handle it. I would love to help them out, but I just don't think it's feasible for us to make that decision on the rest of everybody else that pays taxes in Fletcher to take that on, because that could be a can of worms. We could start being liable for everybody's yard. That's just my opinion on it.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
And
I
I'll-
think I think it's an unfortunate situation, but I just think our hands are tied, and there's really not much we can do here. And I think staff and Jabbo and everybody else, I mean, I think we did a lot of due diligence for these individuals, but I think this is where we're at now.
And I appreciate staff taking on our request to go and talk to some of the homeowners, just to make sure where everybody around them stood. And, you know, I'm definitely with the staff attorney's recommendation, with the engineer's recommendation, with the general statutes that you sent us about, you know, our responsibility to make sure all that stuff stays free-flowing and open and so on and so forth. I think I'm in agreement that now that we've done everything we can do to take care of this situation, and that unfortunately it's going to fall on that homeowner from this point to rectify the private property situation with the ditch line and doing that, so.
And for me, right there, I know that week right there helped me out a lot, so I can do my due diligence as well. I actually went out there with, after our past meeting and looked at the ditch line, spoke to the wife. But I also get an opportunity to talk to colleagues, talk to some other town managers out there that I know real personally, and see if there's any blind spots we might be trying to see, or anything that we might be missing, try and get all the, you know, the full 360 on this thing. And everything comes back to the same thing what we're talking about right here is the engineer's recommendations and the attorney's recommendations. Can't really go against that. That's bad business practice right there if we start doing that. And if we start doing work on somebody's property, setting the precedence then, basically if it's anybody else in the future, we'll have to be doing stormwater on other people's property. So that's the things that take back from all that. So yeah, I agree 100%. Jabbo and the staff, they do a great job. I think they're outstanding, and Ben, he's top notch. I think if there's options out there, he would have listed more options and stuff like that to us, and he's always done that in the past. So basically, it's kind of to the point where it's a bad situation, but I feel like our hands are tied. We have to go with our attorney's recommendations. This is my opinion. So.
And just to elaborate more, and I may have emailed you all about this, I did check with our town attorney, and just from a liability perspective, what would he recommend? And you know, I tried to explain the whole overall picture, and he recommended that we go with what the our engineer's report recommendation was.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. We definitely did our due diligence, and I think it's an unfortunate situation, but it falls on the property owner at this point to move forward for what he wants to do next.
I'll make a motion for you.
And that's
I don't think we need
consistent
a
with our
motion, yeah.
policy. This is nothing outside the norm
Okay.
of when we encounter a similar situation.
Yeah, sound like we're all in agreement here.
Yeah.
So again, thank you,
Yeah,
Jabbo
thank
and
you.
Mark, and
Thank you, Jabba.
Yeah, thank you very much.
everybody.
Thanks, Joe.
Any other questions, comments? on that item?
I will follow up staff-wise back with the Todds and Blands on this.
Sounds good.
And just so you know, all the property owners that were potentially impacted, it was great to be able to get a hold of them and explain it, and they were all very easy to talk to, and I kind of thought this would take a lot more explanation, leave a lot more questions, but that went much smoother than I thought.
Yeah, that's the thing, we served, as a council up here, we served the citizens of the town. When I say citizens, it's all citizens, including them and everybody else, but yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Good. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
All righty, moving on to item number 6, the status of the revolving funds application for DEQ for sewer projects. Mr. Manager.
Yeah, and I didn't have much more on this from last week, so, you know, essentially back in July, I talked to you all about the availability of state revolving funds that came about as a result of Helene to help with water and sewer repairs, enhancements to systems that have been impacted or potentially impacted as far as, I guess, maybe doing proactive things, which is what we're trying to do, and then also ascertain if there were impacts from Helene. And again, it would be attaching residents along 3 streets that are right now technically decentralized wastewater to a centralized. That's just a fancy word for moving them from septic to sewer. And they're kind of in this strange pocket in town where there's sewer all around, but these folks don't have it on their street. Again, it's Westfeld, North Hudson Lane, and Dogwood Terrace. And I also had, I mentioned this last week, our intern that was here, we developed a letter and a survey, and this is just to try and better determine the status of the septic systems and if they're failing, and, you know, because that helps to build a case on this because it'll be a competitive grant with Department of Environmental Quality and EPA. So we just sent that out. I apologize, we had a little gaffe in there. We had sent it and didn't have the survey attached. So it was resent with the survey attached, and we're starting to get responses back in. So hopefully this will help. Land to Sky is helping with the full application. I did a preliminary application, and hopefully we'll be able to build a competitive enough application to get this awarded. And again, it covers all the costs for connection. I mean, right now, as I understand it, there may be some small part that's not, but it's supposed to be covering the line extension, the connection fee, and I believe the connection to the house too. So once I know when the full application goes in, I'll let you know when that happens. But I think a good opportunity to try and extend sewer to an area that we've identified as unserved. That's all I have.
Sounds good. Any questions, comments? All right, moving on. Item number 7, the appointment to a newly created Water and Sewer Commission. Just a reminder, last week we talked about the City of Hendersonville and Henderson County entering into an interlocal agreement, and there's 2 provisions in the interlocal agreement that impact us. One being the elimination of ETJ, and 2, we get a recommended appointment to the county commissioners for that water sewer board. And I think we left off and we were going to try to figure out the times they meet. Did y'all find out anything on that?
I
Or
didn't, and I apologize if we were supposed to follow up on that, so I'll make sure that we do.
Yeah, reach out,
I think it was
yeah.
contact
Yeah,
them,
there to
and also was
contact
asked them if
them.
they want to do the Parks and Recs, because we're lacking.
Yeah. Did we talk to any of them, or do we need okay, we can circle back
Do
and
you
do that
want
then.
do you want staff to reach out to them? Is that what you want?
Yeah, if y'all don't
Oh,
mind,
okay.
yeah.
All right, I'm sorry, I had in my notes and I wasn't clear if that was something you all were doing but I know you probably need one. We'll do that.
Okay, yep, sounds good. Okay,
Get
well,
back
and
with you.
Any questions or comments on that item?
Just also tell them there's an open position in Parks and Recs. I think there's 3 spots, we had 2, maybe.
Well, I got another application.
Oh, okay.
I have 3. And I have 1 person for the
What
ABC
about
board
ABC?
spot as of right now.
Oh.
That's going on next month's agenda.
Oh, good.
Good.
Yeah, that's all set.
Sorry, maybe we weren't super clear there, so sorry
That's
last
fine.
week.
And we talked about it before the meeting, and I wasn't clear either,
Yeah,
so
okay.
I apologize for
Yeah.
that. But I'll reach out between the county and the city tomorrow to find out, do we have, because in order for someone to be available to do this, especially if they've got family and other commitments, they need to be able to know when it is so they know how to commit to it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, sorry we weren't clear about that.
And they may not
Appreciate y'all.
have it yet. They might know it's once a quarter or once a month, but they
Yeah.
might not have the time, like in the evening and so forth. So we'll get as much detail as we can and let you know. And obviously the people you're considering here, the prospective nominees. So,
Sounds good, thank y'all.
okay.
All righty, then moving on to your town manager's report.
Okay, thank you. Not much more or anything different from last week on the items. I mentioned, of course, park repairs from Helene. We finished what I call this first phase, the ball fields, the multipurpose courts, and the dog park, mostly fencing, some of the surface. We've had 2 walkthroughs at this point. The second walkthrough was done on Friday, and Ben Cathy from McGill Associates sent a report. I just received that today. There weren't as many punch list items on the second go-around, and I'm not clear when those are going to be completed, but I imagine relatively soon. It wasn't as extensive as the first punch list, so they're getting there. They're moving on the second phase, which is the bridge repair, which we're all anxious to use, and the stream bank repair. That's moving along well. They've finished the stream bank portion down near Mills Gap, near the Greenway.
It looks
Yeah,
great.
so you've seen that. So, and they're starting to stage materials by the bridge, and they had to basically like create an access road going through the Copart site and then coming down along Hooper's Creek, so it's easier to get access. So some of the materials are pretty heavy with the boulders and that they got to put down there. So that should be starting soon on the bridge. So that's good news. And unless there's any questions on that, I'll just mention debris cleanup. That's continuing from Helene. That's continuing to go well. Obviously, I told you they're starting in our waterways. They're getting right of entry agreements. They're in Cane Creek. They'll be looking at other waterways. My understanding, they should be, I believe, in Hooper's Creek. And then there's some smaller tributaries that they're identifying. They may not be doing debris removal, but if they see it's obstructing something to the point, I guess, to cause flooding or potential damage to infrastructure, it gets approved. They have to do some level of environmental review too, so that adds to the time to do this, and a historical review too. Town center, you got a question? Yep.
Yeah, I met with the representative for FEMA last Friday. And as of a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, the county no longer has jurisdiction on FEMA cleanup. It's all been given to the state. And all the handbooks and rule books that they've written for the guidelines for them to go by have all been changed. They've made a whole new set of rules on everything. They've reclassified stuff as in how it categorizes as being important on their list. Because they had like 6 new crews come in on Wednesday, and then Thursday morning, they cut everybody off and said that they're not opening up any more projects until they get control of what they've got. Basically, so the 2 of the crews have already packed up and gone back to their home states. The other ones are all threatening to do the exact same thing, to leave the area, because they're just sitting here waiting, and nobody can make a decision on what's going to be cleaned up or when it's going to be done. And the state representative basically told me that they're in the pullouts mode, that they're not going to be picking up anymore. They're pretty much done with what they're going to do, because they picked up a load on my property, put it in a trailer, and then turned around, and the Debris Tech, which is the company that's taking care, they're subbing out to all the different guys that come out and work. The Debris Tech representative came out, and she made them dump it back on the ground. So after they loaded it on the trailer, they dumped it back on my property. But the FEMA guy did say he would come get that, probably. Or he was gonna try real hard for him to get that. So, yeah, so I explained to him that was illegal dumping. Once they put it on the trailer, it was theirs. Well, I mean, he could have been out at the Swannon River and picked up some kind of bacteria or something in that trailer and then mixed it in with my stuff, and now he's dumped it out on my property, which I'm not saying it's happened, but it's possible.
So they're done pretty much well.
Yeah, they
Sounds
said
like-
they're definitely not going into any more open properties. I've still got one property that's been approved, but it's not been opened. So he's supposed to be getting back to me. And I've been talking with the county manager for Henderson County, and we've actually had a discussion about maybe putting together a task force or a group of people that can go out and figure out what is going to be our long-term problems and how are we going to solve it, as all the brush being down for fires, for rodents, for all the different things. So that's kind of been talks a little bit. So that's all I got on that.
That'd be good, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I wasn't aware of some of that. I do know, of course, you were at the LGCCA meeting and the mayor, they were saying 95% complete with right-of-way debris removal, and didn't give a percentage on the amount complete on the going onto private property, the right of entry stuff, but, okay.
But a lot of the stuff that's already been approved in February after the storm has now been unapproved. They've changed their game on it. But they were going off of volume 4 of their disaster cleanup book, even though volume 5 was active February of 2025. But I guess since the storm was in 2024, they're going by the volume 4. But even the volume 4 covered a lot of the stuff that they're now saying it's not going to be covered, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Town center stuff, I mentioned last week, the marketing documents done, you all had a copy, final version. So we're going to be finding different ways to push that out there and get that out to anyone interested, developer-wise. And then also the presentation that McGill did on the development scenarios, I finally got a copy from them, and I'm going to be sharing that with prospective parties that are interested. And of course, our former developer record, they want a copy, so who's expressed interest in taking another shot at it. So I'll be getting that over. I just got that in from McGill Associates. And then last thing, unless there's any questions on Town Center, we're going to do another Shred Day or Fall Community Appreciation Day in conjunction with First Citizens Bank. So we'll be doing, they'll have a shredding vehicle out there, and then we do the hot dogs and food and lunch for people coming by or interested in that. And I know it was a difficult day to coordinate pill drop or medication turn in for the police. I'm not sure we're going to have that out there.
Now,
So-
that's going to be at First Citizens, correct?
Yes, it's at the First Citizens branch here on 25 across from the Ingalls. And again, it's Friday, October 24th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Now, we'll do a reminder. I imagine we'll help with a flyer and other ways to advertise that. But it was well attended last year. We had good, even though we had to delay it and move it into, the spring one, and which we do at Town Hall here, and then this fall shred event, pill drop at First Citizens. So thank you to Mitzi Reed getting that going along. So she had reached out to me about that. That's all I had.
All right, questions for Mark? All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Any other business from council? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.
I can put these.
I heard you're over there talking.